This one has some of the craziest, most shocking updates I've ever seen in my entire life, so please stay until the end because I want to know what you guys think because I'm so conflicted on this one. I'm currently on a hiring committee for a newly established role in my division. It's designed for someone with a marketing background, but involves a lot of direct interaction with clients on projects. This person will manage a team within our marketing department, and it's a relatively senior position. We've had our first set of interviews, and one candidate stood out particularly in terms of her experience, practical skills, and overall demeanor. Although I can't say that she's unequivocally qualified over the others, it seemed pretty clear that she should be brought back for a second round. After her first interview, she received very positive feedback and seemed like an obvious choice to return. Yesterday, however, one member of the committee mentioned that a quick Google search of her name brought up that she had been a cast member on a reality show about a decade ago. Admittedly, the show is not one remembered for its tastefulness. Think along the lines of Real World or Jersey Shore. This news seems to have soured most of the committee on her, and it doesn't look like she'll be brought back. They're arguing that someone who will serve in a public and managerial role should not have this type of history, and her atypical first name means that a client or coworker will likely remember her from that show. I'm unconvinced. I think that her qualifications are such that she should be considered, and that a qualified applicant should not be blacklisted indefinitely because they were on MTV once in their 20s. Now, on one hand, I am kind of sick and tired of the culture that, your job has any capability of reaching into your personal life, that everything is connected, that people get banned on one platform, then they get banned from another, and then they can't have a job. And pretty soon, it feels like we're headed in the direction where landlords are going to be saying, no, I'm sorry, I can't rent to you because you said this thing online. However, and this is where I'm conflicted, and I really want to get opinions on this because I don't know what the right path forward is on this. She is going to be in a managerial role, and she's going to be interfacing with other clients. But you do have to ask yourself, are they even going to look her up? And if they do look her up, would you really not do business with a business because their representative was on a reality show? Is that a real problem, or is this a fake, made-up problem? Kind of like ad buyers pulling out because they think someone's not going to buy Coke because it was on a Nazi video. I would love to have some discussion on this in the comments. A few were also unhappy that she left this off her resume and didn't bring it up to us in the first interviews, which I find a bit ridiculous. It isn't related to her professional experience, and she shouldn't be tasked with casually bringing it up each time she's in the running for a job. That being said, I'm easily the most junior member of the hiring committee, so I don't know if this is something I should spend capital on. But I feel like rejecting this candidate outright for a years-old action would be unfair to her. At the very least, she deserves to be brought back in and asked about this part of her past. How can I advocate for her, or should I bother? Any help would be greatly appreciated. I want to hear your thoughts on this as well, guys. Should he even try to advocate for her? KK comments, no one on the hiring committee knew who she was until someone Googled her. That doesn't sound like she is particularly recognizable, and with the number of reality TV shows and how long it's been around, I don't think it's that shocking to run into someone who was on a show at some point. I think taking her out of the running is a big overreaction. Ashley says, being a young person on the hiring committee, I agree this may not be worth spending a lot of capital on. If you've watched the season and know they weren't known for horrible comments, I would probably push back slightly. But if she isn't the best candidate, I doubt I would waste so much capital. It is also worth noting, it could help her get into a few doors for reality-obsessed clients. Personally, I would be a little curious, Google them if I found out, get bored, and move on to actual work that matters. While I agree, the type of people that are interfacing with businesses that wouldn't hire someone because they were in a reality show might be also the type of people who are unhinged enough to care about that type of thing. Huge update. After reading your response and the comments, thank you everyone, I decided this was something I should stick to my principles on, or risk feeling later like I didn't make use of my position in the moment. I shamelessly memorized the script you provided and went to bat for the candidate in our next meeting. She ended up making our second round list after a little more of my pestering, with the caveat that she would be asked in our next interview about her time on the show, and any professional implications it had on her. In the first 5 minutes of her next interview, someone on the committee asked her about it in what had clearly been a very rehearsed and somewhat accusatory question. A lot of comments were wondering why the rest of the committee was so much more hung up on this little detail from her past, and in retrospect, I blame it a lot on age and cultural difference. All other members were 15 to 20 years older than myself and seemed to think of reality TV as a very trashy genre without giving consideration to the differences between shows. We're a pretty formal office, and I can't imagine any of the people at that table with me had ever turned on MTV in their lives. A few comments point out that the issue seemed kind of gendered, and a male candidate likely wouldn't have faced the same scrutiny. Now, Now, I also want to ask about this. This it seems to be a Reddit-ism, right? Everything is about gender, women can do no wrong, everything is sexism. Did anything in that entire story point you towards sexism? I'm genuinely curious, and I would love to know in the comments. While I don't know for sure how a man in the same position would have fared, all I can say is that in our meetings, they very openly fretted about hiring a party girl, a term I don't know a similarly negative male equivalent for. Have you ever heard of a frat boy? I'm the only female VP and felt some serious responsibility to discredit that phrase when the opportunity arose. This just feels like reverse sexism to me. I feel like sticking up for someone just because they're a woman, and you think there might be sexism in a phrase, which does have a male equivalent, which is frat boy. It's kind of insane. How about we focus on the candidate and their qualifications? It felt important to remind them that our corporate business formal office is not a bar, and that just because she'd been filmed at a few clubs 10 years ago didn't mean she'd be a coyote uglying on the reception desk if we hired her. We all made some choices in our 20s. She'd obviously been asked in interviews before and gave her very honest, impressive answer about how she had been approached to be on the show while in college and had thought about it, it would be fun, considered it a very unique experience, and hadn't done anything while filming that she couldn't own up to now as a working professional. As this position was in marketing, she even said that the show had sparked her interest in the field after seeing how it was promoted on her seasons. She didn't spend more time than necessary on it, had clearly done her homework on our company, thoughtfully answered every question, and ended up accepting an offer from us. Doesn't the whole work thing feel just a little demoralizing and dehumanizing in general? I feel like having to beg these people, please, I'm a qualified candidate, I went on a reality show 20 years ago. Doesn't it feel kind of like just licking the boot? It's just depressing to me. But yeah, this is a wild one. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and I'm super curious to hear what you guys end up having to say about it.